will take around approximately 30 minutes to talk through my slides, and then that leaves a balance of 25 to 30 minutes more for us to answer any questions. So without any further delay, why don't we start the session? All right. So before I do that, right, so let me start with introducing myself, a bit more about myself. In this time and age, we are unable to meet in person, but I thought this will put a little bit of human touch for us to know each other. And in consulting, right, we have very boring introduction slides where we have a picture and like 5 paragraphs of all the projects we did. So I thought we'll try to break the monotony a bit and talk a little bit about myself. So I come from Ahmedabad. This is where I've been born and brought up. Spent some part of my professional career outside, but for majority of my life, I've lived in Ahmedabad and continue to live here. Uh, as a background, I'm a doctor by background. I studied medicine from NHL Medical College in Ahmedabad. After studying medicine, I decided to kind of take a bit of a different career path and pursue management. I went to IIM Kozhikode. Those were like a couple of very beautiful years, lived at this beautiful campus, studied there for 2 years. Irrespective of campus, where the campus is, these are generally some of the best days of your life. And I envy you guys that you are right now through that phase. After that, I worked at Deloitte, learned a lot about consulting, worked with some of the top-notch clients and people there. And then I decided to start on my own, had an idea, decided to start a consulting firm. And here, 6 years later, here we are. I run Health Arc Insights. We are a 40-member team working in the area of healthcare and life sciences. We primarily work in 3 areas. We work in strategy and market research. We work in analytics and real world evidence. And we work in AI and machine learning. Personally, I love to travel. That's one of my hobbies. I've traveled to 20 countries so far, but the bucket list or the goal in my life is to get to at least 100 countries. Love food. Not now, but long ago, Zomato used to kind of be a complete content site where you used to write restaurant ratings. And I was like one of the top writers on Zomato. I still consider that as like my biggest achievement so far. So that's a bit about myself. Uh, Today, in terms of today's topic, I look forward to talk about digital health. We'll go deep into this topic, but to set the scene around digital health, right? So, what is digital health? It's a very loaded term. Uh, Initially, long ago, everything used to be IT, right? So if there is technology, there is software, it was IT. Now it's a fancier world today, so everything is not IT, it's digital. Uh, and anybody who wants to say that they are doing interesting stuff talks about doing digital transformation, digital engagement, digital marketing. But let us try to decode what is digital health first of all. Let us visit a bit into the history of digital health. And then from there, we'll talk about the future of where digital health is headed. So when I started my career, right, there was no term like digital health. And it was not long ago, just 10 years ago, but there was no digital health. There was a term called as health IT, right? So what was health IT or what is health IT? It's a shorthand for health information technology. It's a broad concept which encompasses an array of technologies, right? Hardware, software, medical records, financial data related to health systems, etc. Everything is health IT. So it could be systems like electronic health records, personal health records, EMRs, prescription solutions, telemedicine, any mobile apps that constitute in the healthcare area, any data analytics in this area, precision medicine or AI, all this at the end of the day was health IT, right? And health IT is fairly important. Today now it has evolved into this fancier term called as digital health. But more important than just the evolution of the term, it's become extremely important today because unlike 10 years ago, our life is really impacted by technology, it is really impacted by data, and everything has become connected, right? So since we are on Microsoft Teams, you understand that Microsoft Office is an integrated suite. So if I want to transfer this call from the computer to my mobile, I can just press a button here and the call gets transferred. I can work on the same PowerPoint on Office 365 on my desktop and on my mobile in parallel. And one of my colleagues can also work on that file. And as a result, everything has come together. All devices, all equipments, all software are getting connected. Your mobile is now very well connected. It is your shopping, it is your alarm clock, it's everything. Hence, it's very important for healthcare also to keep up with that pace and start becoming more digital. Now, you might have seen this ICICI bank ad where they talk about like number of branches where each individual working on their phone is a branch of ICICI Bank, right? That is how the world has become. But healthcare has been slow to evolve. There is a resistance. A lot of doctors still believe on pen and paper, but the consumer has evolved, and hence the importance of being digital is very, very high. And there is also a lot of value in it. It helps patients get better care. It gets patient access to care at any place, any time. So with all that, with the technology evolving, patient preferences evolving, and the need for better care, digital health has become extremely relevant in our life. And since you all are students in healthcare area, pursuing careers in this area, it's very important to understand what all is happening in this vast world of digital health and where we can all play a role. So let us talk a little bit about digital health and understand it to the various layers of digital health, right? So there is a big concept. There are three concepts at a fundamental level. There is digital health, then there is digital medicine, and there is digital therapeutics. There are three layers. So digital health is everything that is digital, that is IT related, happening in healthcare, whether it is how to do patient billing in an automated way, or how to have hospital bed utilization be stronger, or how could pharma companies do better research. Everything constitutes in digital health. Then there is a slightly deeper level, which is digital medicine. Anything that is more clinical in nature, which helps patients get medicines in a better way. So telemedicine, right, where a doctor is able to see a patient, or e-prescription, where a doctor writes a particular medicine to be given to the patient, constitutes digital medicine. So this is slightly more regulated, slightly more complex because it has implications on a person's health. And then the third concept is even more specific, which is digital therapeutics. So digital therapeutics is essentially anything which is so regulated, which has such a high impact on a patient's health that it requires a prescription. So now, like you would have for a capsule, you have a mobile app which is prescribed by a doctor saying, hey, patient X, why don't you prescribe? I'm prescribing this application. You have to use it 3 times a day or follow the protocol in the mobile app to get better at a certain disease you might have, whether it is depression or anxiety or diabetes or something else. So now when it becomes a prescription app, it's digital therapeutic. So there is an angle of breadth where digital health is very broad, all encompassing. Digital therapeutics is very deep, very niche into clinical area. Digital health focuses broadly on engagement, how each stakeholder can benefit and make healthcare more efficient, more engaging, versus digital therapeutics is science-based. How could software be so scientific that it can start improving patients' health? So that is digital therapeutics. And digital therapeutics, interestingly, even have clinical trials. So there are mobile apps which undergo clinical trials and are tested to the same rigor as a medicine would be tested. So that's the depth versus breadth of digital health. Now, there are many areas within which innovation is happening. So the digital health space is extremely crowded. the number of software applications, the number of things that are involved in healthcare is tremendous, right? So I've just thrown in a few examples. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So you would have mobile health where you would have adherence apps, you would have fitness trackers that many of you might be using. Then you would have these prescription apps which help patients get better. You have various sensors, right? So you have biometric sensors, you have diagnostic products, you have these weighing scales which can then get connected to your mobile, but also tell the doctor your weight. There are these blood sugar monitoring patches that people can wear, and it'll tell the blood sugar directly to the doctor. Uh, so there are sensors and variables. Then there is personalized healthcare where there is software which helps doctor make decisions that, hey, based on the image or based on the patient's history, they might have X, Y, or Z diagnostics. Then there is the telemedicine angle where you're remotely consulting patients, monitoring them. The doctor does not need to travel. It can all happen remotely. Then there is the entire information technology part where a lot of health information is stored through EMRs or other health IT applications. So, and these are just few examples. There is endless number of digital health innovation areas. So in today's talk, what I thought was we'll try to think about how can we think of the digital health landscape? What are different areas within digital health, or what are different ways to look at the digital health landscape? And within that, see where the future is, what all is happening within each of these areas. So we'll talk about the evolving landscape a little bit. So healthcare landscape, after having worked many years, I feel can be viewed in 5 different ways. So one way to look at healthcare landscape is the value chain. So value chain is the entire value chain of a patient. So starting from screening, then diagnosis, then treatment, then monitoring, surveillance, right? So there is this entire value chain through which a patient goes. And one could identify digital components in various parts of this value chain. Then healthcare is complex. There is not a one size fits all approach. Right? So now you look at solutions by disease areas. Some solutions are more relevant for communicable diseases like infectious diseases. In recent times, it could be COVID, but otherwise it could be TB, malaria, various other infections, pneumonia, or non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, obesity, cancer, etc. Each of these could also have very disease specific solutions. So that would be by disease area. Then you can look at healthcare landscape by the level of maturity. So India is a huge country, right? So digital solutions, there is only one part of the story to make a solution, but then how mature is it? How well is it adopted? So there are some solutions which are really mature. For example, online pharmacies in recent time are really mature. A common man accesses online pharmacy, knows how to order medicines. We see TV ads of pharmacy and 1mg and Netmeds now, right? So they are very popular solutions. Then there are emerging solutions. So these solutions are getting there, but not extremely popular, not commonplace to use. These could be some of the apps which are managing sleep or managing your diabetes or managing your fitness, etc. And then there are these nascent, very innovative solutions. They are still under research. In some cases, they have been just launched, but very few early adopters know about these solutions. And this is where the future is, right? So in 5 to 10 years from now, these might be the mainstay. Then very importantly, looking at the healthcare landscape from a technology perspective. So whether it is IoT, whether it is telemedicine, blockchain, smartphones, e-commerce, etc. Because each technology has its own complexity, own maturity, own scale, own cost. So knowing about each solution from a technology lens also is of high value. And then while there are so many digital innovations, the degree of operational involvement required is very different. So for instance, a home healthcare company like Portia, is also fairly digital. They have an app, they have web presence, they have a lot of automation, but it requires physical people to go and treat people at patient's home. So it's a high degree of operational environment versus something like a Wealthy, which is a digital therapeutic app in India, is fully automated. There are no people behind it. And hence, the degree of operational involvement is extremely low. And these have different business models, different implications on how to operate these businesses. So again, a very good lens to look at this entire digital health landscape. So these are various ways to look at it so that when we are thinking of how to apply a digital solution, we can think about, okay, how would this be relevant? When would not get lost amongst the thousands of companies or solutions that exist today? Uh, Now we'll talk a little bit about the value chain approach in more detail, right? So screening, there are many initiatives nowadays coming up around screening at large scale. So there would be a digital app where one could take a picture, one could give their voice, one could write about their symptoms, and then the app will help with screening the patient so that they can be brought into treatment at a mass scale. Then there are things around diagnostics. So a lot of innovation in diagnostics, and the future is will be at point of care diagnostics. So today, for most of the diagnostics, we have to go to the lab, but there are not enough labs in India. If you have to go to villages, if you have to go to people's homes, society, workplace, you need point of care diagnostics. So nowadays there are a bunch of point of care diagnostic companies arising, right? So the best example of point of care, which is existing today, is blood glucose, right? Everybody could have a blood glucose meter at home and test their glucose. But now there are solutions to test your cholesterol, there are solutions to test your hemoglobin, there are even solutions to test and do early detection of cancer, which are coming in at point of care diagnostics. The entire concept of liquid biopsy. So you take a blood sample and based on that blood sample, you try to detect whether the person has cancer or not. Instead of trying to put a needle in the person and try to take a tumor tissue out, you can detect cancer at an early stage. So a lot of evolution is happening in diagnostic space. Then a huge challenge in a country like India is access to healthcare. So there are doctors, there are clinics, there are a lot of things available, but people are not aware about all this, right? So people don't know that where do I go? How do I find this doctor? Who is the right doctor? Where does he or she sit? So access to care is another huge issue. Again, Practo is a very popular example, but there are a lot of applications who are trying to help with doctor discovery, appointment booking. Like Credi Health is one such company. So these allow you to improve your access to healthcare. Then there is a treatment part of it, right? So innovation around how you digitize treatment, how you try to make it easier for patient, how you try to take it to their home. So in urban places, there are companies like Portia, Care24, India Home Healthcare, so many home healthcare companies which take treatment to patients' home. And not only that, right? So there are a lot of companies who do dialysis at home, who do dental treatment at home. So for many sick patients, by the virtue of having all these digital capabilities, you are able to treat them in a way more sophisticated way at their home. And then the last part is monitoring. So having everything nowadays could happen in the phone, right? So having a smartphone and then like some kind of a wristband or some kind of a watch or some kind of a patch, one is able to monitor a person's sleep, their diabetes level, their blood pressure, person's lifestyle, how much they are eating, do they have stress or not, are they taking medicines on time or not, and hence able to see that patients comply to care. And if there is a chance of their health worsening, somebody can immediately jump in and intervene. So, monitoring is another aspect where one is seeing a lot of innovation. Uh, we're seeing a lot of applications by disease area also, right? So each disease is complex, like I said. So for example, there is this application we came across recently called as Dr. Null. It's a TB screening app. So a patient, what they have to do is in their phone, just cough, right? And just say this. And using machine learning, the software will say whether this is related to TB or not. So now imagine you don't need like a complex X-ray or putum or anything. You can just hear the sound of cough and try to do this. There are such applications which have come across for COVID as well. Not so popular in India, but in other countries they have taken off well. Uh, there are such applications also for Parkinsonism, Alzheimer's. A lot of companies working in this space. Then there are apps for cancer treatment. There are apps for diabetes management, right? There is this company Beto, which one of my senior runs. Fantastic company. They help track and manage blood sugar levels for patients through an app. There is this platform called as Zyla, which is a lifestyle management coach, which is so well gamified that you feel like you are talking to a real person, but you would be talking to a software, and the software will help you manage your diabetes condition. There are similar apps for various diseases, but I guess you get the idea. Then there is the level of maturity, like we talked about. So online pharmacies or doctor discovery or online diagnostics, a lot of health information websites, podcasts, blogs, all this has now become mainstay. So it's part of people's day-to-day life. It's no longer innovative or new, but it is digital. And today it is present in urban India, but it will get to tier 2, tier 3 rural parts of India as well and continue to improve. So this is one piece which will happen in the future. Then there are emerging technologies, right? So there are companies like Niramai, which looks at various X-rays and pathology slides and tries to suggest diagnosis. There's a company called as Cure AI, which again does that. So they look at radiology reports, and without a radiologist, using AI, they are able to diagnose certain conditions. And what it does is it does not challenge the doctor, but when doctors in certain hospitals have a lot of workload, they do pre-work for them, so then the doctor's life becomes faster. There are emerging companies like Dozy. So Dozy has this small strip. You put it below your pillow, and then it tells you how good your sleep was, how your blood pressure was, how your respiration was. Are you undergoing stress? How could you improve your lifestyle, etc. Sorry, is there anything?
I think someone's unmuted their mic.
Okay.
One second, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then there are nascent initiatives, right? So this is all in research level. This is happening today at incubators. This is happening today within various research labs. But tomorrow this will be the mainstay. So for example, there are nanotechnology based solutions. There are these drones which people are making. Actually, drones have come up a big way within COVID and how they are trying to do vaccine delivery using drones, how they are spraying disinfectants on entire lakes to prevent mosquito using drones. So these are nascent technologies. These are still at an early stage. Someone is doing all the hard work to try and see how to make it a reality for us in tomorrow's world. Then there are various technologies, right? So it's important to look at technology also as a lens because one is trying to solve a problem, but technology plays a huge role. If the technology is mature, then the ability to make a good solution improves, right? So for example, we had good mobile developers in India in the past, but we did not have enough mobile phones. Prior to Jio, we did not have enough people having 3G or 4G connections, and now even 5G. So mobile solutions were not very popular, but now with improved connectivity, mobile technology has taken off in a big way. So mobile is one technology. Same way, electronic medical record is another technology. For many years, this has held a huge potential in India, but somehow Indians have been slow to adopt digitization, slow to have digital records. So hopefully in our lifetime, in next few years, we'll see it be more digital. Then e-commerce is another area. E-commerce has been a game changer for India, right? In terms of how people buy medicines, how people buy nutrition products, how people buy medical devices. everything now can get to the doorstep of a person. Same way for IoT devices. Having IoT based devices has again been a game changer, because now, without having to spend a physical person, you're able to get into a patient's home. And by getting into a patient's home, you know much more about that person's lifestyle and disease, and hence can help that person. Just a second. Telemedicine, another such area. You could do a quick doctor consult over a phone, do not need to go, do not need to stand in line. You can get consultation from a best doctor while you are sitting in Ahmedabad. You can get a consultation from a specialist in Bangalore, get a second opinion from Hyderabad, and then decide what you want to do. So telemedicine has again been evolving very fast. Social media, again, huge role, as well as a huge responsibility. So education is a big area where social media has played a role, right? Spreading the right information, spreading awareness amongst patients, knowing that a treatment is available, knowing how they can cure yourself, knowing about better lifestyle. At the same time, social media is dangerous. So even in COVID and otherwise, we see that there is a lot of misinformation being spread on social media. There is this myth around vaccination being spread on social media that vaccines are bad. Now, so social media is also evolving very fast, and we're trying to figure out what is the best way to help people and prevent all this fake information misuse. And then blockchain, again, a huge game changer. So with digital, there was a lot of fear that, okay, what if the information is misrepresented? What if the wrong information is captured? What if hacking happens? What if people try to misuse digital? So blockchain provides a whole new level of security. It provides a whole new level of traceability into data. So clinical trials, now when done digitally, can be done on blockchain. The supply chain of various vaccines or medicines in India could be tracked in a strong way through blockchain, so that it is hard to tamper the data. So technology lens also helps in terms of thinking about how one could have better solutions in the future. Right, and lastly, but not least, is the degree of operational involvement and degree of technology integration. So I talked about, right? So all businesses are going digital, but some are more digital than others. So like home healthcare still has a lot of operations and some technology integration. Online pharmacy still has a lot of operations, but slightly lower, right? At least the ordering can be done online. But one person has to still travel and go to the patient's home and deliver the medicine. Maybe with drones, this will become less operational. Then there are telemedicine companies, online doctor discovery, IoT devices, etc., which are again fairly high amount of technology integration. And then there are fully automated apps like Wealthy or Zyla or others, where or Cure AI or Miramai, where there is no operations. It's all software, completely digital. So again, a different way to look at it. Each business has its own implication. Here, you still need a lot of people, you need investment, you need infrastructure. Here, you need very few people, but you need strong IT capabilities. The way to market these solutions, the way to explain customers about these solutions is different. Here, you do digital marketing. Here, you still have to do a lot of on-ground marketing, right? So the way you set up these businesses are different. But the way healthcare is, how complex it is, all these solutions will remain. This entire landscape will continue to remain. There will be some operational businesses, some non-operational ones. Operations will not go away. It will only keep getting better over time. So I have taken few examples of companies as well that we have been like tracking very closely. We as a company maintain a database of 3,000 digital companies, and we keep tracking them on an ongoing basis. So I just threw in a few examples of some companies we thought were really interesting. So for example, 5C Network is a radiology network. So radiologists across India, when they have some free time, can go and do some extra reports from radiology centers in villages who could not afford full-time radiologists. Now, within that product, they have built a very interesting software where they do some automated reporting. So they set a template, do some early AI, and then have a suggestion. So the doctor, instead of them taking 10 minutes to do the report, it will take them 2 to 3 minutes to do a report. So they are improving efficiency with using AI. Very interesting business model. Uh, then there are these companies like YOLO Health or IU Devices, uh, Asian Meter, where they have set up health kiosks, and these kiosks are like ATMs for healthcare, right? So you can go to the kiosk, get simple tests, put in simple information on the screen, a doctor can check you and provide basic guidance. So there are many such examples. I don't want to go through too many right now, given the limitation of time. We looked at various such companies who also have been enabling treatment within villages and rural India. Uh, Again, there is no end of solutions, right? There is telemedicine, there are kiosks, there is digitization of medical records, there is remote monitoring and clinical decision support, medicine delivery, adherence to medicine, healthcare financing and helping people with finance, training of healthcare workers to build capacity. So there are many digital health solutions coming up. So the landscape is super, super active. It's a very interesting time. Before we end here, again, given the sad time that we are all in, a talk is incomplete without talking about COVID, right? So COVID also, while it's been bad, we have seen tremendous amount of innovation in the digital health space during COVID times. So lot of new solutions have come up and very effective ones around which are like repositories and tracking solutions for COVID patients. So imagine like tracking and tracing, which was never done well, has now improved significantly. Arogya Setu app is just one solution, but there are many other tracking solutions to track medicines, track ventilators, track hospital bed availability, track logistics, track food, track migrant workers, which have come up during COVID times. A lot of surveillance apps that have improved, that have come up to again identify availability of RT-PCR test, seroprevalence in the entire population, positivity rate of testing. So now we have a lot of information. The situation is still out of control, but we have a lot of information to help and fix it. Then there is risk stratification, right? Which age group, which locality needs micro containment, which people are at higher risk, how do we, who are super spreaders, identifying that and stratifying risk. Communication, right? So how do you communicate and ensure that the message reaches everyone in India, across the world? Then very fast clinical trials. So vaccines, all of you would be aware, take 3 to 5 years to come to life. And many companies have done a phenomenal job to release vaccines in a record time, less than a year. So this is the innovation in clinical trials, how clinical trials have become faster, how you can enroll patients faster, track data faster, release the results faster. Then there are supply chain innovations to ensure that vaccination reaches so many end booths. The vaccine is still stored at zero temperature. Still, so many people are able to get vaccine every day. When you open a vial, ensuring that all the doses in the vials are used, there is only 2 to 4% wastage. Again, phenomenal innovations in this area. Hospitals have upgraded. There are so many new hospitals which became COVID hospitals, established protocols to manage COVID patients, built specific beds, added ventilators, added oxygen lines. All this they were able to do overnight. Then there are drones and robots who have started to play a role in treatment, medicine delivery. There's research collaboration where so many entities have come together, right, and not done their own siloed research, but worked with ICMR, worked with leading bodies to do research. So there's a lot of digital health innovation that has happened in these times. There's a phenomenal report by Asian Development Bank, which talks about 70 most promising innovations in COVID times. I would highly encourage you to read that if you get the time. Again, there's a lot to learn from this crisis around where the future of digital healthcare is. So with that, I will pause and take any questions that you might have.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you for such an insightful session. We are now moving forward to the question answer. So there are some interesting questions in the chat box. I would like to take them one by one. So first question is by Harshita. She says, "Good afternoon, sir. It was an insightful session. Sir, could you please brief us about how exactly blockchain health record process works?"
Sure. Good question. So blockchain, and again, I'm not the tech expert, so I will do my best to answer this. But blockchain is a technology which works on a ledger. So each record or each entity becomes a ledger. So everything is a ledger or a file. If you follow the accounting concept, everything is one file. And hence, and that file is fully traceable. So now, if I write some notes in the patient, it is stored in that patient's ledger and then it will move. It is also stored in my ledger as a doctor. So everything that I have done is stored in one file. Everything that the patient has done is stored in another file. And there is a copy maintained every time, which is completely tamper proof. So if everybody deletes a record, if anybody makes any change, then all that is traced back. So blockchain brings in two big concepts. One is traceability. One cannot change or tweak a medical record. As a result of that, in clinical trials, the data is highly reliable. For insurers, when they have to make the payment for that patient's care, the data is highly reliable, right? And then second, there is high amount of interoperability. So today, if you go to a radiologist or a pathology lab, your report is done in their software. Then they print out a file. Then you go to your hospital, they scan that record. It does not talk to each other. It's all disconnected. Blockchain brings in a fundamentally new level of interoperability. So that file can grow from your lab or radiology to your hospital and from your hospital to your insurer all within a single system. Now the limitation is all of them have to be blockchain users. If they are not on blockchain, it will still be broken. But tomorrow, when they are on blockchain, the interoperability will be very high. Today, what happens is everybody works in a database structure. So for those who might have a bit of a tech background, would understand the database in the past used to work on a structured field. So everything is like a Excel in the background with a table that this is my diagnosis table, this is my lab value table. So everything is a table. Now those tables might or might not talk to each other from one software to another because tables are written differently. But this is not in a table, this is in a file. It's a folder. So that folder can flow seamlessly and hence it brings in high degree of interoperability. Sorry if it was too technical.
No, sir, that's fine. So the next question is by Ankur. He says, "Sir, being a doctor yourself, do you see the digital health at large is heading towards improving the doctor-patient ratio in the future? Also, is the digital health sphere has the potential to eradicate word-of-mouth treatment culture in the country?"
So yes and no. So it will definitely improve the doctor-patient ratio. The doctor-patient ratio might remain the same, but the doctor will get a lot of help from digital solutions. So them having to do paperwork, them having to spend time traveling to see a patient, them having to spend time on many inefficient activities will reduce. And as a result of that, the doctor will be able to spend time on the things they do best, which is diagnose a patient and treat them. Now, word of mouth is very different, right? It's more cultural. So even when there is digital, I could use WhatsApp, I could use Facebook, I could use LinkedIn, Instagram to say what I believe in. It might be true or it might be a myth. So in fact, with digital, there is a danger. Digital can only amplify a behavior. If that behavior is good, it will be 10x better. If it is bad, it will be 10x worse, right? So it cannot unfortunately fundamentally change people. And if people decide to misuse digital, the dangers are higher as opposed to the dangers in a word of mouth setting because I can only meet 10 people in a day. But on Facebook, I could have 10,000 views in a day. So it could make things more dangerous. Now, and hence, during my talk also, I said that the entire social piece has a lot of governance required, lot of oversight required to make sure it does more good than bad.
Yes, sir. Social media definitely requires a lot of governance at the moment. So the next question is by Jatin. Sir, as you mentioned about apps like Doctrinal, how sensitive and accurate are these apps? Also, how are the app updates of such apps regulated?
It's a great question. So, Doctrinal is an India-based app, so it has limited regulation. In India, there is limited regulation today for digital applications, which go so far. But in US, for instance, the US FDA regulates these apps very tightly. So some apps are considered as medical devices, and there is a regulation for those apps under the Medical Devices Act. Uh, in certain apps are regulated by something is called as SAMD, software as medical device. So then they require their own clinical trials, they require their own evidence to be submitted. Now each app will have different sensitivity, specificity, accuracy. So I can't address all of them, but they are tested enough, and then the regulator sees that it is doing more good than harm. That is the general principle that is followed while allowing people to use that app. And then the updates also are tested. There is a full regulation around it, around 21 CFR 11, SOC compliance, there are a bunch of other regulations which come in. So then these apps are built to the highest degree of accuracy and rigor. In India, unfortunately, we are fairly backward. So today, actually, if you might know, there is a same regulation to approve medical apps, medical devices, and pills. So we don't even as a country treat pills and medical devices differently. We are so behind, probably 100 years behind. But hopefully we will also get there someday in our lifetime.
Yes, sir, definitely. So the next question is by Pravesh. He says, thank you, sir, for such an insightful session. As you discussed, India is slow regarding digitization. One factor I feel for this problem is lack of accountability, as people feel who shall be responsible if the machine provides a wrong result. Also, the lack of proper regulatory framework for health complements the slow adoption of digital health. So, how do companies of this segment gain the trust of HCPs?
Good question. So there are two parts to it, right? So one is the regulatory part, which we talked in the last question also, that there is lack of regulation. Now, that being said, some companies are really forward looking. So what they do is, even though it is not required by the regulator, they do clinical studies, they publish evidence, they publish papers, present in conferences to try to adhere to the same standards which are not required in India but required in other countries. So there are companies who have already started doing that to generate evidence, even if it is not required. And that definitely helps win the trust of healthcare professionals. However, there is always a challenge for doctors to differentiate between the signal and the noise, right? Because there are so many companies and there is crap also around. So they don't know who is genuine and who is not. So there is an issue that still exists. It's not solved. We also as a society are slow to adopt things, right? So doctors in India are also slow to adopt things, read proactively about digital innovations. So it will take time for all these things to change in India. The mentality and the mindset is slow. There's a pushback from patients, pushback from doctors. But there are forward-looking companies who are trying to do this, and hopefully they will kind of pave the way for all such innovation.
Yes, sir. So the next one is by Simonti, so you can unmute yourself.
Hello, sir. So my question was, you have talked about all these apps which are in different spaces, serving different purposes. What I want to know is, since you have a number of clients from pharma companies, so how much of a priority is partnering with these kind of apps, or maybe developing something in-house? Maybe if a particular pharma company has, is specializing in a particular therapy area, maybe partnering with an app which deals in that therapy area. How much of a priority is it for pharma companies in general? I mean, is it a general trend, or is it a rare exception? So that's what I want to know.
Sure, great question, Shumanti. So definitely digital is a priority for pharma companies. We are seeing that in many of our interactions with pharma companies. They are trying to understand this landscape. They are trying to be actively involved because they realize that they cannot continue to live in the past. They have to be more digital. They have to go directly to the customer. If they do not, someone else will. Right now, these companies have for many years been healthcare companies. So trying to be a digital company instead of a healthcare company is hard, right? We are seeing the same in banks. So banks have been these traditional old age institutions where there are like these 5, 6 clerks sitting, and then all the old uncles and aunties go every week to fill in their passbook. Now, for the bank guys, the old stuff, it is hard to imagine that there is no passbook anymore required. It can all be done on the app. But they are trying to change, they are trying to evolve. So banks are now becoming software companies with a banking license instead of a banking company with a software. Pharma companies are also trying to get there. But it is hard for them because they don't understand technology. They have been very powerful. Their business is going well without technology. Now they have started interacting with startups, partnering with them to try and bring in digital capabilities. At the same time, for startups, they don't have the same healthcare capability. So a startup like an e-commerce platform might not understand healthcare to the same depth as a pharma company does, right? The connections with doctors, the understanding of complexity of a disease, the understanding of the drug, they might not have it at the same level. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship that they are getting into. Unfortunately, there was a wave of extreme amount of funding, which made these online companies fairly arrogant at a certain point. But now they are all collaborating with pharma, and together they are trying to bring in digital transformation into healthcare at a faster pace.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, so I think this is the last question that we would be taking because we are running out of time. So the question is by Ravi Raj. He says, "Sir, as there are pros or positive aspects to digital, likewise there are negative sides too. One such is data security. Apart from blockchain, how does a firm working in the digital health space accounts for data security?"
It's a good question. I'll be a bit out of depth, to be honest, on this question, but I'll try my best to answer. So, data security, like any other security, is a subject in itself, right? And there is nothing new to it. It has been solved before so many times, right? So, if I am living in a 5 bedroom bungalow, I have a small security guard. But if now suddenly I start storing gold in my basement, then I would bring in more robust security, maybe an armored tank sitting outside my house. So again, I cannot solve that myself. I'll hire an agency who solves it for me. So same goes for data security. There are phenomenal solutions which are on the cloud with all three cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, who provide amazing data security solutions. The level of cybersecurity that they can bring in is tremendous. There are many firms who have expertise in building firewalls, data access restrictions to prevent hacking. There are companies who have expertise in doing penetration testing and trying to continuously test your environment to make them hack proof. So there are all these services and products available today. Again, I'm not a cybersecurity person to be able to provide credible information on this, but you just have to hire the right solutions. And all this is available. It is there, it is sitting right there. You just have to kind of look at it and it's available. And many companies are using it. So it's not even anything which is like rocket science or new. It's being done today. So the biggest barrier to using digital and security threat is inertia of a person. There is also this mentality, more in India than others, that app is like this chindi thing, right? Okay, I can spend $5 or I can spend 50,000 rupees to build an app. I can spend 4 crores to buy an MRI machine and 100 crores to build a building, but I cannot spend on an app. So same mentality goes for data security. You have to think of it as an important subject and spend enough money, buy enough tools, all that is available out there.
Yes, sir. So with your permission, can we take the rest of the questions or should we wrap
Maybe
up?
we can take a couple more and then we can
Okay.
wrap up.
Okay, sir. So the next question is by Ajay Kumar. He says, is there any Ayurvedic platform for online solutions like Portia?
So it's not comparable. Portia sends nurses at home, so there is nothing Ayurvedic, right, or allopathic between in nurses. But there are a bunch of Ayurvedic platforms. If you just Google, I want an Ayurvedic consultation online, you will get 10 to 12 different links. So plenty of them available. I personally am not a believer, so I have never tried, but I'm sure there are many and good ones also. What's the next question?
Yes, sir. So the next question is by Akash. Sir, I am curious about the challenges in the path of digital health in rural India and how can we overcome those challenges?
Good question. So the biggest challenge in rural India in the past was connectivity, right? So because there was lack of internet and lack of connectivity, there were many challenges, but now that has started to disappear. With Jio, actually most of the villages have mobile connectivity. Some of them do not have uh, like electricity at their homes, but they do have a 5G connection. So now digital health in rural India is widespread. The challenges are slightly different. The challenges is understanding culturally how rural India operates and adopting to that culture. So in India, in a large urban city, one could say that I have this e-commerce app and I will buy something. But in villages, and I will get a prescription for a doctor. But in many villages today, they don't have a doctor. Now, in those cases, what they do is they go to the local pharmacist. That local pharmacist is the doctor. So now we came across this company called as MedCords. They have an app called as IU app, which they install at a local pharmacy in every village. So the villager can go there and the pharmacist has an app from which he will do the doctor consultation and then provide the prescription. So now the way to solve telemedicine in rural India is slightly different. Same goes for diagnosis, same goes for many other things. Then there are sometimes language barriers, there are accent barriers. So all these things need to be accounted for, but fairly solvable. If somebody spends enough time with users, it's easy to solve these issues.
Yes, sir. So the next question is by Rushikesh. Nowadays, big companies such as Reliance, Tata, Amazon are collaborating with NetMed's 1mg pill pack. What kind of massive innovation they may bring with their collaboration? What these companies see in e-pharmacy?
So good question. I don't think they will bring massive innovation. The massive innovation was already brought by these companies, the smaller ones, right? 1mg, NetMeds. They proved that this is possible at scale. But there is only so far they can go, right? They do not have the muscle, they do not have the power and scale to reach a country of 130 crore people. They try to reach and solve it for 2 crore, 5 crore people. Now, with the likes of Reliance, Tata, Amazon coming in, they have the muscle to go to the rest of the India. The remaining 125 crore people who are not benefiting from these solutions, these giants will take them to the remaining people. These giants will make it a larger, viable, more accessible business. So in my opinion, it will be the access and the scale that will change as opposed to innovation. Right? If, like for example, uh, if they want to build more innovative and automation software, they could have done that better as a small company. But if they want to reach out to 100 crore more people, it's better to be a part of such a large company. So it will be the access and scale that will change, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. So the rest of the questions, I would like to tell the audience that you can directly connect to Sir on LinkedIn, or you can share your questions with us. We will give it to Sir. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. So I guess we are at the end of the session. So, I mean, it was a really interesting session, Dr. Gandhi, and I think we got to know a lot about the massive amount of innovation that's happening in the healthcare space, and it really gives us hope to the future of healthcare in India, and the fact that patients are no longer being dependent solely upon their healthcare providers. They're learning how to take their own health into their own hands. They're being empowered, and also right now there's no one size fits all diagnosis. There's precisely, people are being diagnosed according to the precise severity or the extent of the disease they have. So it really gives us hope. And so thank you again for bringing all these things to light and to our notice. And if you want to say something from your end too, sir, you'd be most welcome to.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine. Thank you for inviting me. You all have been a wonderful audience, asked really, really great questions. I would like to encourage you to keep reading more about this space, and I'm very hopeful that all of you will have a role to play in terms of transforming healthcare in the coming years. So thanks for taking the time. Wish you all the best. And on that good note, maybe we'll say goodbye.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank you, sir, for giving us your valuable time and enlightening us with so many important topics and recent news, etc., on the topic. I would like to thank the placement committee and the technical committee for putting in all their efforts to make this event happen. And I would really like to thank our audience for being such active listeners and engaging with a lot of questions and cooperating with all of us. A big thank you to each and every one. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.